second that.
Karen? Yes. Rick?
Yes.
Kirby?
Yes.
The fund status report as of today's
I just want to get some prices on trimming to see if it's worthwhile for the road department. So if you know any, just please let me know. On the fire, I kind of gave you some run numbers. July 14th through July 31st, they ran 2 fire runs, 3 traffic accidents, and 10 medics for a total of 15. What's interesting is August 1st through August 31st, this last month, there were 7 fire runs, 3 traffic accidents, and 12 EMS medics for a total of 22 runs for the month of August. The equipment and the trucks, we've been evaluating at Don Madison, look at them, and what we found on engine 102, the tires on them are 14 years old and 11 years old, and the DOT standards are 7 years. So I contacted TCI, and I'm going to contact another company to get some prices on tires. Their bottles, Lane, sure. Okay. Yeah, I'll talk to him about it. Chances are we're buying off the state bid, and hopefully he can get them. Okay, good. I'd rather keep it local. The air bottles, all the air bottles, I told you last meeting, the certifications were expired in May and June. So we took them to air breathing systems, keep forgetting, and had them all recertified. 6 of the bottles were expired due to age because we only keep them for 15 years. And that brings up the next subject, the valves and masks. Their certifications expired April 15th of 2015. And Warren Equipment, they're the ones that do the recertification. And I need a PO for, it's rough, it should be less than $1,500, but I need a PO for $1,500 for Warren Equipment.
I'll second that.
Ready?
Yes.
Okay, next on my list, the trucks and apparatus, they've all been gone through, and you've seen the bills come through, such as the water pump on the grass fire truck, wouldn't even hold antifreeze, wheel bearing out, brakes not working, brakes on the Medic 108 had to be replaced. We're to a point where the trucks are being, I'll use the word stabilized, so the next step is to work with the prosecutor's office and like put together an agreement for the use of the equipment with Hanover and the future maintenance and those issues. Hopefully, next meeting we can have that. About a month ago, we sent letters to the firemen, and I've had about 10 responses on bringing their equipment back. And so I'm going to look at sending another letter out and then start maybe contacting them through email, because we need to get the radios and the equipment back. Now, for instance, the March radios, which cost $5,000 a piece, one fireman brought it back. Darren Decker did contact me after I sent him an email. He has one, and he wants to get that equipment back. We're still missing one, so we're trying to track down where that $5,000 radio is. I found 2 of the Surface Pros computers. I think there's one more, so I'll keep working on taking those down. And also, as I reported the last time, Hanover is making some runs out of Madison Station now. They're spending the night down there. I'll go ahead and skip over zoning for a minute and go what I have miscellaneous. If you get a chance, look at harrisontownship.net, because that's the website for Harrison Township. We paid approximately $750 to have somebody set it up. And we pay, I'm thinking $20 an hour to have it maintained. With 3 months, we didn't pay him $200. And also, he'll teach us how to do it if we're interested. Plus, you have the cost, we have GoDaddy hosting it. If you look at our Harrison Township website, it has minutes on it, it has its zoning regulations, it has a zoning map on it. It has, if you're interested in doing work in the road right away, it has the permit information in it. In our case, we have a park, Harrison Township has a park, you can go on there, fill out the application to use the park. We don't charge to use shelter houses, but we do have an application. Take a look at it, I think it would help. We've been through almost 120, over 120 public records requests. And part of those requests are for meeting minutes. And if we had it on a website, that would, people could just get the information a lot quicker than having to wait. Take a look at it and tell me what you think. Individually, if you want to let me know, I can have the gentleman see if he'll come out here and talk to you maybe at the next meeting. I just think it's a good thing. The other comment, the records retention schedule. The Records Commission met, I met with them, and, which is Karen and Jody. Karen and Nancy. And we went over and kind of added and tweaked it and compared it with some other townships. We just did it. Sent it to the Ohio Historical Society. Have you had a chance to send it? So hopefully, speed of government, maybe in a month we can have it back and we can start looking at records and the older ones and destroying them if we don't need them.
I did call them, and they said they actually have up 60 days. The Historical Society has 60 days, and the auditor actually has 60 days, but they said that the average turnaround is a month.
Yeah.
But I don't know if that's just for the Historical Society and then to the auditor.
At least it's in the process. So,
Yes, and thank you both for the work and effort you put in on that, because I know it was a lot of extra stuff that we needed to do there, so thank
well,
you.
for instance, the security cameras at the firehouse, never had them, and you never had a retention schedule for them, so hopefully we're having all that. Couple other things, policies, my internet was down, I wanted to bring them. Next meeting, I like to have a policy where if there's an accident, you get drug tested. You know, a few of those policies, when you first hired me, I discussed some of them with you, gave you some copies of a couple. I just think we need to act on them. I mean, now's the time, so. That's all I have in what I wrote. If you have any questions for me.
Mark, you closed down the fire department because you weren't going to have to maintain the equipment. Then now you're paying a person of Hanover more than what anybody here has ever made. Now you're telling us you're going to now maintain the equipment and use the equipment?
No. What I'm saying is, like I said at the meeting, and I'll answer your question. What I said at the meeting when the firehouse was closed down and contracted out, I wanted to be able to go through every piece of equipment because we had a lot of problems with it. Now that equipment is, to me, safe. Now we're going to work and put together an agreement for Hanover to use them and maintain that equipment.
Why are they already using them?
Yeah, they are.
Yeah, it's our equipment.
It was specifically stated in that contract that the equipment was not included, so why is it already being used?
We fixed the equipment, and my decision is let them use it because they need it to protect Madison Township.
But you,
But why are they using it?
But that's illegal.
It's not part of the contract.
you make a contract and a resolution, you don't do what's in a contract and resolution, and that's not illegal?
Your attorney said right there, while it was being taped, that the contract did not include the equipment on the tape.
And the bottom line is, so for $150,000 plus $12,000 for Spellman, they're going to maintain that equipment and everything.
I'm sorry.
Do you have your zoning?
Yes, I do.
They're going to maintain that equipment for $150,000. You shaking your head, yes?
I'm not here to, when we have that.
Or you're not here to tell us what you're doing with our tax dollars, that's what you're saying?
Yep, pretty much.
Last month, or not last month, but your special meeting for the summit opening, you had a citizen that had some zoning concerns, and I just want to give you
I
copies.
think we also have a gentleman here this evening that has a question about the permit.
This is the last letter of communication I had with that individual. You'll see it was a July of permits since our last meeting. And at the last meeting, we talked about adjusting or possibly changing our zoning permit fees. And said that I would bring you a draft. I have that. This is the proposal, and just so that you have something to compare it to, here's what you approved on May 22nd of 2013. So you have something to help you understand. Why do we need to make adjustments? There's several things that the planning commission has changed as far as how lot splits, adjacent property transfers and stuff are now handled. And also I found 2 or 3 items in our resolution that have never really had fees, even though the resolution talks about it, we never really established fees for those. So the only proposed change that I'm proposing is on the new one under item M, second page, the appeal of the decision of the zoning inspector. The previous one was a $500 cost. I'm recommending that we change that to $300. Now that would involve a hearing in front of the BZA and also would involve having a court reporter there and so forth.
You may want to check and see if you can charge for that.
I already
Have
have.
you checked?
Yes,
You said
and
you
yes,
can.
you can.
Okay.
So the one thing you cannot charge for, you'll see down there under T and U. So, and then after that, you will see that item V, utility and service structures and buildings, while we talk about them being allowed in various zoning areas, we have never established that there was a fee for them. Public buildings or structures governmentally owned or used, obviously there is case law out there that says, yes, they have to apply for the permits, yes, they have to comply with zoning, but there is no fee. So that's clearly stated in that. We clearly allow church and religious structures in many of our zoning areas, but we don't have any fee requirements. We also don't have any size requirements, which is interesting. We have a lot requirement, but we don't have a structure requirement or a setback requirement, or any of that. So there's some work for the commission. Educational institutes, schools, and non-government owned type. We also don't have any minimum lot sizes or fees or setbacks or anything for those. So there's, and then we have in our current resolution a probably never been used in its entire history, a provision that says if a business wishes to use a piece of property next door to them that they own, but it's 2 separate pieces of property, and they wish to make that other piece of property into a parking lot, they have to take the issue to the BZA, or the BZA just approve. They can't really disapprove it, they just put conditions on it, and then they have to come to you with it. And it's Article 14.2.24. And we're going to have one of those in the very near future. It's taken us since 1962 to use that little piece of the resolution, but I suspect we're going to see it here in the next few months. With the auto auction place up across from All Rivers Basket Building. They own the old Builders Transport, but that's City of Newark. Right beside it, they are in the process of purchasing most of those pieces of property
They already have.
and going to tear down a building and put in parking. Again, they're not going to have a structure there anymore, so therefore this provision would fall to you. On the third page are all the new items from the Licking County I just wanted the people, when they seen it, to realize that even though they're making application to the zoning inspector, which is what has to happen, it still has to go to other committees, or in some cases to you. It's also a nice reminder to me, when I'm looking at it, to say, oh, okay, who else has to look at this? Yeah, I think if you look on there, item Z has the trustees. Some of them have to go to the commission, some have to go to the Board of Appeals. If they're unmarked, they just come to your zoning inspector. I've also got with you a little bit of reading material, and I've highlighted some things in it. This came from the 2014 Winter Conference of the Ohio Township Association, and it's about fees. And I've highlighted some things in it, but the thing that we want to really make sure we're doing is that we're keeping our fees, as it says, on page 2, we're keeping our fees reasonable. And reasonable is measured by the amount of dollars coming into zoning and the amount of dollars going out of zoning. So you got to look at your various costs of running a zoning department, which would include your BZA and your commission
you five think you have no responsibility to talk to the citizens about how you're spending the money? You said that you shut down our fire department because of the maintenance on the equipment. Now you're telling us that we're gonna maintain the equipment after the fire department's shut down for another fire department. You feel like you have no responsibility to explain that to us. You can sit up there and ignore the citizens of this township. You have no you don't feel guilty about this at all? You have no remorse about what you're doing? And Mark, you're sitting there, you're the one that stated that you shut down the fire department because of the maintenance on the old equipment. And then you said there's enough money in the future because there's rollover in the fire department fund right now, over 100,000.
Out of proportion, Mr. Malone.
What's that? You're out of proportion.
Okay. Is there a second to adjourn?
No. They're gonna spend more money on a new fire department than they spend on the old fire department. That wasn't the reason they shut down the fire department. Don't look at me.
They've got individuals working for a private company, illegally taking our public property. That is it. That's a private fire department, not a government. Positively guaranteed. 40 years of
They have no clue what they're doing. They're giving us rope.
I had a fire right over my house.
That's right. They're not even working for a government agency. They never said corporate fire department. They're not owned by, they have nothing to do with that or with either township, and they are contractors. Incorporated in the fire chief. And the law says if the contract sell any equipment down here, without it being sealed bids or
That's why I wanted to.